So a little bit on our company. So EnGia Solar is committed to providing sustainable solutions for humanity's future through the power of photovoltaics, and I apologize for the typo. We hope to provide a new way to produce feed. So this is the problem we're solving. What are we trying to do here? So average farm expenditures per farm in the United States are increasing, where farm operations' largest expenditure is on feed. Our products would actually provide over 10-fold higher protein yield of animal feed per unit of land. Our solution is through our photovoltaic-driven microbial protein production. We'll be able to substitute protein-rich animal feeds, thus allowing to decrease the amount of feed needed within farm operations. To put this into perspective, the combination of solar power generation with the production of microbial proteins, so our product would essentially be powder-based that can be used as protein-rich feed for animals or even as food for people. Our solar power production of SAP requires only 10%, and I repeat this again, only 10% of the land area compared to soybean, which is the crop as of right now, that this is the highest yielding protein crop that we know right now. So solar power production of SAP could far outproduce stable crops through the PV process. So the PV process also, to put this again into perspective, would supply protein for about 90 people. I know this would be for feed, but I would need to sort of use that as a reference point on what that will look like when we're feeding animals. So through the PV process, supply protein would be for about 90 people, which is 2.7 tons of protein per year, where unlike soybean, which is the highest yielding protein crop, is enough to only feed 40 people per hectare of land, not 10% per hectare of land, which would be 1.1 tons of protein per year. Target market would be cattle farms, horse farms, pig farms, poultry farms, and hunters. Our competitive landscape, solar foods, and feed producers and livestock products. I do want to mention that this company right here, Solar Foods, actually had gotten a 10 million euros during their sort of startup, but instead of feed, they're doing actually for human consumption. And so equivalent, they got 11.98 million USD dollars in funding from the Finnish Climate Fund, so just something to consider. Sales channel, selling to customers would entail a storefront online modality. If the company is successful and grows to the greater United States or even the RGV, considering our geographical location, distributors would be considered. Marketing activities, there would be press releases, participation in community events, social media platforms, PR stunts, and target local media outlets. Financial projection, I do apologize, they're a little bit all over the place. This is sort of like my first time, looking into this, just a lot of factors to consider, especially looking into the generators, but I'm more than happy to be able to provide my financial report and go a little bit more into depth on how much each thing would cost minimally and the maximum cost of each thing. But I do want to say this, is that starting from the year 2020 to 2050, as the food carbon footprint, we started to decrease that. And as we continue to, as the global protein supply for 9 billion people continues to increase, we're looking at about a 500 billion annual protein market here. So milestones, the first milestone is definitely to look into assembling a research team and an executive board. There is a lot of grant money that will be available to start this up. What I need is to have that research team and also to develop a grant writer, have that grant writer help me to write these grants, and then look into purchase generators, solar panels, and also just purchasing that, or if not leasing a land, or asking whoever I'm going to be helping out, be like, okay, this is what I want to do. Would you be willing to lease me 10% of your land, and I could provide you the product. Team and key roles, research team, like I said, project managers, marketing team, myself, and a future hire, definitely we need a CFO. Partnership resources, university partners, research grants, research groups, and sustainability advocacy groups, and photovoltaic research partners. As we are making way to diminish our carbon footprint, as we are also making way into using more sustainable methods, this is something that I know a lot of people will be willing to look into and fully establish here, at least here in the RGV. It's time. Thank you.
Yeah, you started this time.
Sure.
So what is the feed itself? You know, I'm familiar with feed, right?
Right.
How does it look like as far as your feed versus the traditional feed?
Right. So compared to the other feed, right? It'll be it's in powder form. The only thing with animal feed is just that's compacted, that's put together with other nutrients that animals need. As far as my feed would go, typical feed only contains X amount of protein, and it solely depends a lot on soybean meal. And like I said, to produce a lot of protein, or at least what soybean produces, it requires a whole hectare of land to produce X amount of protein. With photovoltaics or through the SAP process, you will only need 10% of that, and it will produce 10 times more protein yield than regular feed, which comes directly from soybean meal. It's definitely an advantage there.
So you're delivering the protein to them in a powder form, and then they mix it with other ingredients?
Essentially, that would be one of the things that we would provide. The main focus, right, is to actually produce the protein itself.
So not the end product, but the protein itself?
Yeah, the protein itself, yes. And eventually that, sort of in the long term, looking into, okay, how can we pair this up with the nutrients also that animals need? Protein is the major focus, considering that, let's say for example, cows. To run a successful cow farm, we need about 47 cows. So each cow consumes about 2 pounds of protein per day. So, when you have regular protein that, doesn't have as much, farmers are pushed to buying a lot of protein product to fulfill the needs of the cows that they're consuming. 2 pounds, that's minimal. I've talked to farmers before, and they've told me it's even bigger than that, sometimes to 5-8 pounds of protein per day.
All right. Can you provide us with the breakdown of the photovoltaic process?
Photovoltaic?
Yeah. Can you simplify that?
Yes.
What does that look like?
Yes, great question. And I have it here just so I don't make this more complex than it should be. So essentially, this is what we will be looking at. This was not. Should be right here. There we go. The SCP process, right? So this single cell protein process. Excuse me. So PV is used to convert atmospheric CO2. So this is quite literally using CO2 from the air. And this would be, again, derived from the air, and this would be captured into microbial biomass. The electricity generated by the solar plant produces chemical energy. This is then stored into electron donors such as hydrogen. This is then converted into chemical energy. After that, it's stored in biomass by microbial growth. And finally goes through a filtration process that essentially removes the nucleotides, fatty acids, carbohydrates are also discarded. And then at the end product, through all of that, then that's when you have the protein.
And who's doing that?
All of that would just be generators. These were, through all this process, it'll just go through these generators.
It's a machine, not a person?
It's a machine, correct. Not a person.
You mentioned that you would lease land. How accessible is that currently? And what would that monthly rate, yearly expense be for your company?
As far as the rates, that's something that I've considered. I wouldn't know exactly what that number would look like, considering that I'm mostly looking into the option of, okay, getting with the farmer, and if the farmer believes in the product, be like, okay, would you be willing to lease your land? And in the meantime, I'll be working on this product, and whatever I get from this product, this is going directly to you. And more specifically, I would like to target, a farmer, let's say, who may have like a cattle farm, or who may have a mixture of different animals within their farm. To be like, look, you lease me this small plot of land. The product that I make, this will go directly to you. Would you be willing to make that exchange? Or if there's gonna be like a monthly sort of like rent, what is that gonna look like? How much are you willing to, what leeway are you giving me, right? Considering that this is developing, then I'm gonna give you part of my product if it's successful.
So how would you market this product to the farmers?
Essentially, just letting them know that this is something that it's backed up by science. This can happen. It's all a matter of getting those generators, also creating our brand and making sure that, at least here in our geographical location, this is something that's been started up in Europe. We don't see that much of here that's going on in the United States. So having that first foot in the door and start to push out my brand and be like, okay, this can happen. This is backed by science. I just need a place where I could do this, develop the research most importantly, and start creating proof of product. And so market that to farmers, like if you believe in that, then we start scaling this up and we start developing our brand. Create that brand awareness.
Okay, so we're out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.